Imagine a substance so valued that empires built trade routes around it. Kings offered it as diplomatic gifts, and ordinary people believed it could carry prayers directly to the gods. For thousands of years, fragrance was not simply about smelling pleasant. It was tied to religion, medicine, power, and status, woven so deeply into civilization that its history stretches back further than most written language itself. The earliest perfumers were not chemists in any modern sense. They were priests and temple workers, extracting scent from flowers, resins, and woods, believing the fragrant smoke rising from their offerings carried messages upward to the divine. In ancient Egypt, perfume accompanied the dead into the afterlife, preserved bodies for eternity, and marked the boundary between the sacred and ordinary world in temples across the kingdom. Thousands of miles away in Mesopotamia, one of history's first recorded chemists, a woman named Tapputi, was distilling flowers into fragrance using techniques historians still study today. Centuries later, French kings would build entire courts around scent, Parisian perfumers would revolutionize an ancient craft with chemistry, and a single iconic bottle would become one of the most recognizable products on earth. This is the history of perfume, the scent that ruled empires. It is a story that connects Egyptian priests to Mesopotamian chemists, Greek philosophers to Islamic scholars, medieval physicians to French kings, and laboratory chemists to fashion icons, all united by an endless fascination with scent. For most of human history, fragrance was reserved almost exclusively for the wealthy, requiring rare ingredients, skilled labor, and knowledge passed down through generations of craftspeople who guarded their techniques. The ingredients often traveled enormous distances, carried along trade routes that moved spices, silk, and precious metals, connecting distant civilizations through a shared appreciation for scent before those civilizations ever met. Religious rituals across nearly every ancient culture incorporated fragrance, whether through burning incense, anointing the body with oil, or perfuming sacred spaces believed to bring worshippers closer to the divine. And the story of how this ancient, sacred practice transformed into a global industry, built on chemistry and marketing rather than temple rituals, reveals how deeply scent remains woven into human culture even today. In ancient Egypt, fragrance was not a luxury reserved for special occasions. It was woven into nearly every aspect of daily religious and royal life, from temple worship to royal burial preparations. Egyptian priests burned kefi, a complex fragrant blend of honey, wine, and resins, inside temples. Every single evening, believing the rising smoke helped calm and please the gods before nightfall arrived. Perfume makers worked skillfully with imported frankincense and myrrh, rare resins traded from distant lands along the Red Sea, transforming them into oils, unguents, and incense used throughout Egyptian society. The process itself required real patience and skill. Workers pressed flowers and crushed aromatic woods, and soaked the fragrant materials in oil for extended periods, allowing the scent to slowly transfer before straining and bottling the finished product. Royal tombs contained elaborate collections of sealed perfume jars intended to accompany the deceased into the afterlife, ensuring they would smell pleasant and remain properly prepared for eternity ahead. Cleopatra herself was famously said to have scented the sails of her royal barge so heavily that fragrance reached shore before the ship itself ever came into view, announcing her arrival before anyone could see her. Egyptian perfume techniques and formulas would eventually spread outward along ancient trade routes, influencing Greek, Roman, and later Mediterranean perfume traditions for centuries to come. Temple workers followed strict recipes passed down through generations of priests, treating perfume production almost like a sacred ritual in itself, with specific measurements and timing believed necessary to please the gods properly. Perfume was not limited only to religious use. Wealthy Egyptians applied scented cones of solid fragrance atop their wigs during banquets, allowing the wax to slowly melt throughout the evening and release fragrance across their hair and shoulders. Even ordinary Egyptians, though unable to afford the finest imported resins, used simpler local ingredients to create modest fragrances, showing just how deeply the desire for pleasant scent extended across every level of Egyptian society. Archaeologists studying preserved Egyptian perfume residues have identified specific ingredient combinations still recognizable today, offering a remarkable link between modern fragrance chemistry and formulas created more than 3,000 years ago. Long before Greece or Rome ever developed sophisticated perfume traditions, ancient Mesopotamia had already established remarkably advanced techniques for extracting and preserving fragrance. The earliest known written record of a chemist anywhere in human history belongs to a woman named Tapputi, who lived in Mesopotamia around 1200 BC and worked as a royal perfume maker for the palace. Surviving cuneiform tablets describe Taputi's detailed distillation process, involving flowers, oil, and calamus, filtered repeatedly through cloth to produce increasingly refined and long-lasting fragrance. Her methods were sophisticated enough that some historians consider her techniques an early precursor to modern distillation, a process that would not be significantly improved upon for many centuries afterward. Mesopotamian perfume production served both religious and practical purposes, scenting temples, royal palaces, and the bodies of the wealthy, while also functioning as a valuable trade commodity across the wider region. Perfume workshops operated as genuine specialized industries within Mesopotamian cities, employing skilled workers who guarded their particular formulas and techniques as valuable trade secrets passed carefully within families. Taputi's surviving legacy reminds us that women played a significant, active role in the earliest development of chemistry and perfumery, a contribution too often overlooked in conventional historical accounts. Beyond Tapputi herself, Mesopotamian society more broadly valued fragrance as an essential part of both religious and royal life, with kings maintaining dedicated perfume workshops within their palace complexes to ensure a steady supply for ceremonies and gifts. Diplomatic exchanges between Mesopotamian rulers and neighboring kingdoms sometimes included fragrant oils and resins as valued gifts, reflecting how perfume functioned as a genuine marker of wealth and sophisticated culture in the ancient world. Clay tablets from this era also record detailed instructions for combining specific ingredients in precise ratios, suggesting a level of methodical, almost scientific thinking that predates what many people assume began much later with Greek natural philosophy. Modern chemists studying Taputi's recorded methods note genuine similarities to techniques still used in fragrance extraction today, a striking testament to how advanced Mesopotamian craftsmanship truly was, even by contemporary standards. Greek civilization inherited and expanded upon earlier Egyptian and Mesopotamian perfume traditions, developing its own distinct philosophy around scent, health, and personal identity. Greek physicians believed fragrance carried genuine medicinal properties, prescribing specific scented oils for various ailments and incorporating perfume directly into their broader approach to physical and mental well-being. Greek athletes commonly applied scented oils to their bodies before competing, believing fragrance enhanced both physical performance and personal presentation during public athletic events and religious festivals. Philosophers like Theophrastus wrote extensively about different fragrance types, categorizing scents systematically and documenting which combinations produced the most pleasing or long-lasting results for practical use. Rome absorbed and dramatically expanded Greek perfume culture once it rose to power, transforming fragrance into an enormous, highly lucrative commercial industry across the entire Mediterranean world. Wealthy Romans applied perfume liberally throughout their daily routines, scenting their hair, clothing, furniture, and even the walls of their homes, treating fragrance as an essential marker of refined taste and social status. Roman bathhouses became genuine centers of perfume culture, where scented oils were applied before and after bathing, turning personal hygiene into an elaborate, deeply sensory social ritual enjoyed by citizens across the empire. Roman emperors sometimes displayed their wealth through extravagant perfume use, with Emperor Nero reportedly spending enormous sums on rosewater alone, using it to fill fountains and scent entire banquet halls. For a single evening's entertainment, perfume merchants in Rome operated organized shops along dedicated streets, importing rare ingredients from Egypt, Arabia, and India, creating a genuine luxury trade industry that employed thousands of workers across the empire. Roman soldiers even carried small amounts of perfume while on campaign, believing pleasant scents helped maintain morale and a sense of civilization, even while stationed in distant, unfamiliar territories far from home. By the height of the Roman Empire, perfume had become so widespread that critics and moralists occasionally complained about excessive fragrance use, viewing it as a sign of decadence, threatening traditional Roman values and discipline. After the fall of Rome, it was the Islamic world that preserved, refined, and dramatically advanced perfume chemistry during what became known as the Islamic Golden Age. The Persian scholar Ibn Sina, known in the West as Avicenna, developed a significantly improved distillation process during the 10th century, allowing for the extraction of pure rose essence with remarkable precision. Ibn Sina's refined distillation technique produced rosewater far purer and more consistent than earlier methods, quickly becoming one of the most prized and widely traded fragrances across the entire Islamic world. Islamic scholars viewed chemistry and perfume making as legitimate scientific pursuits, documenting their processes carefully in written texts that would later influence European science, once translated centuries afterward. Baghdad, Damascus, and Cairo all developed thriving perfume industries, with skilled craftsmen producing rosewater, musk-based fragrances, and floral oils that were exported along trade routes stretching from Spain to India. Persian gardens specifically cultivated for perfume production grew vast fields of roses, jasmine, and other fragrant flowers, supplying raw material to a booming regional industry built around scent and careful chemistry. These advanced Islamic distillation techniques would eventually make their way into Europe, arriving through trade, translated scientific texts, and cultural exchange, laying essential groundwork for European perfume traditions centuries later. Islamic perfumers also pioneered the use of alcohol as a fragrance base, a significant innovation that allowed scents to be diluted, preserved, and applied more easily than the heavier oil-based perfumes common throughout earlier civilizations. Trade caravans carrying rosewater, musk, and other refined fragrances connected the Islamic world to distant markets across Asia, Africa, and eventually Europe, spreading both the products themselves and the underlying scientific knowledge behind them. Wealthy households across the Islamic world maintained dedicated perfume collections, often stored in ornate glass bottles crafted specifically for the purpose, reflecting the deep cultural value placed on fragrance throughout daily life. Historians widely credit this period as a genuine turning point in perfume history, transforming ancient craft rooted primarily in religious ritual into something closer to an early, methodical branch of applied chemistry. Medieval Europe presented a genuine contradiction when it came to fragrance. Strict religious attitudes toward luxury coexisted alongside a practical, urgent need for perfume during outbreaks of deadly disease. During the Black Death, physicians believed foul air itself caused illness, leading them to wear elaborate beaked masks filled with dried herbs and flowers, hoping strong fragrance might protect them from infection. These plague doctor masks, now iconic historical imagery, were stuffed with lavender, mint, and other aromatic herbs, worn as a genuine medical precaution rather than the costume many people assume today. Wealthy medieval nobles carried pomanders, small perfume balls often made from ambergris or dried flowers, believing they offered protection against disease while also masking the generally unpleasant odors of medieval city life. Perfumed gloves became a notable status symbol among European nobility, imported originally from Islamic Spain, allowing wealthy wearers to display both fashion and fragrance simultaneously in royal courts across the continent. The Catholic Church held complicated views on perfume, often condemning excessive fragrance as vanity and sign, while simultaneously using incense extensively within religious ceremonies and cathedral rituals throughout Europe. By the end of the medieval period, European perfume traditions had absorbed Islamic distillation techniques, setting the stage for an explosion of fragrance culture that would soon transform the French royal court entirely. Medieval bathing habits declined significantly compared to earlier Roman traditions, partly due to religious concerns about nudity and partly due to fears that water itself might spread disease, making perfume an increasingly essential substitute for regular washing. Apothecaries throughout medieval European towns sold fragrant oils and herbal remedies side by side, blurring the line between medicine and perfume in ways that reflected genuine period beliefs about the healing power of pleasant scent. Royal courts across medieval Europe competed to display the finest imported fragrances, using perfume as a subtle but effective tool for demonstrating wealth, international trade connections, and refined cultural sophistication to visiting dignitaries. By the 15th century, growing trade with the Islamic world had made a wider variety of fragrant ingredients available across Europe, setting the stage for the dramatic perfume culture soon to emerge in France. Few periods in history embraced perfume as enthusiastically, or as necessarily, as the French royal court under King Louis XIV at the Palace of Versailles. Versailles earned the nickname the Perfume Court, partly out of genuine luxury and partly out of practical necessity, since indoor plumbing remained rare and bathing was widely believed to be dangerous for one's health. Louis XIV himself reportedly bathed only rarely, relying instead on perfume, powder, and scented linens to remain presentable, a practice shared by most of the thousands of nobles living at Versailles. A different perfume was often worn each day of the week at Versailles, with courtiers changing fragrances according to strict social customs that reflected status, occasion, and personal identity within the royal court. Perfumers holding royal appointments enjoyed enormous prestige and financial reward, competing intensely for the honor of creating custom fragrances specifically for the king, queen, and other members of the royal family. Fans, gloves, fabric, and even furniture throughout Versailles were often scented, creating an overwhelming, carefully cultivated sensory environment that visitors frequently remarked upon in their personal letters and journals. This royal obsession with fragrance helped establish France, and Paris specifically, as the undisputed center of the global perfume industry, a reputation that would only strengthen in the centuries that followed. Perfume also served a more practical purpose within the palace itself, helping mask the notoriously unpleasant odors that resulted from thousands of people living in close quarters without modern sanitation or regular bathing habits. Wealthy courtiers competed openly to commission increasingly elaborate and expensive fragrances, turning perfume into a genuine arena for social competition, much like fashion, art, and architecture during this extravagant period of French history. For French guild system carefully regulated perfume production, requiring master perfumers to complete lengthy apprenticeships for earning the right to sell their own fragrances commercially within Paris and the wider surrounding region. This rigorous training system helped establish exceptionally high standards for French perfumery, cultivating genuine expertise that would eventually make France the natural birthplace of the entire modern commercial perfume industry. Just south of France, in a small hillside town called Grasse, ideal climate conditions, a fertile soil created perfect growing conditions for the flowers essential to fine perfume production. Grasse originally built its economy around leather tanning, but the harsh chemical smell of the leather trade eventually pushed local craftsmen toward perfume production as a way to mask unpleasant odors on finished leather goods. The surrounding countryside proved remarkably suited to cultivating jasmine, rose, lavender, and other fragrant flowers, giving Grasse a genuine natural advantage that no other European region could easily match or replicate. Local farmers began dedicating increasing amounts of land specifically to flower cultivation for perfume, transforming Grasse's economy from leather production into what would eventually become the beating heart of the global fragrance industry. Master perfumers established dedicated workshops throughout Grasse, developing increasingly sophisticated extraction techniques capable of capturing delicate floral scents that earlier methods had always struggled to properly preserve. By the 18th century, Grasse had firmly established itself as the recognized center of French perfume production, supplying raw materials, finished fragrances to Parisian perfume houses and international buyers alike. This small hillside town's outsized influence on global perfume history continues today, with Grasse producing a significant percentage of the world's finest natural fragrance ingredients even in the modern era. Harvesting flowers for perfume required intense, carefully timed labor, with workers picking jasmine blossoms before sunrise, while their fragrance remains strongest, a demanding tradition that continues largely unchanged in Grasse to this day. The process of extracting scent from delicate flowers like jasmine and rose proved far more difficult than working with resins or wood, requiring innovative techniques developed specifically by Grasse perfumers over generations, and fleurage, a delicate method involving pressing flower petals into fat to absorb their fragrance, became closely associated with Grasse craftsmanship, representing one of the most labor-intensive perfume extraction techniques ever developed. Wealthy Parisian perfume houses relied heavily on Grasse's raw materials, creating an essential partnership between rural flower cultivation and urban luxury fragrance production that shaped the entire French perfume industry. Throughout most of human history, perfume relied entirely on natural ingredients extracted directly from flowers, resins, and animal sources, limiting both the scents available and the total scale of production possible. The 19th century brought a genuine scientific revolution to perfumery. Chemists began successfully synthesizing fragrance compounds in laboratories, rather than extracting them exclusively from natural sources. In 1968, chemist William Perkin, already famous for accidentally discovering synthetic purple dye, successfully synthesized coumarin, a fragrance compound with a sweet, vanilla-like scent found naturally in tonka beans. This breakthrough demonstrated that fragrance chemistry could be precisely controlled and reproduced in a laboratory setting, opening entirely new creative possibilities that natural ingredients alone had never been able to offer perfumers. Synthetic ingredients allowed perfumers to create entirely new scent categories that did not exist naturally anywhere in the world, dramatically expanding the creative palette available to fragrance houses for the very first time. Synthetic fragrance compounds also proved significantly cheaper and more consistent than natural extracts, which varied unpredictably based on weather, harvest conditions, and the specific geographic origin of each ingredient batch. By the end of the 19th century, most sophisticated perfumes combined both natural and synthetic ingredients, a hybrid approach that remains the dominant standard throughout the modern fragrance industry even today. Chemists working in dedicated fragrance laboratories began systematically cataloging thousands of aromatic molecules, building a scientific foundation that transformed perfumery from an intuitive craft into a discipline grounded increasingly in organic chemistry. This new scientific approach also made perfume production far more scalable, allowing fragrance houses to manufacture consistent products in much larger quantities than traditional natural extraction methods had ever realistically permitted. Some traditionalists initially resisted synthetic ingredients, arguing they lacked the depth and complexity of natural extracts, a debate about authenticity that continues in certain corners of the fragrance industry even in the present day. Despite this ongoing debate, synthetic chemistry ultimately made perfume dramatically more accessible and affordable, transforming what had once been an exclusive luxury into a product available to a much broader segment of the public. In 1921, a single perfume would forever change the fragrance industry, blending synthetic and natural ingredients in a genuinely revolutionary way that had never been attempted quite so boldly before. Fashion designer Coco Chanel commissioned perfumer Ernest Beau to create a fragrance unlike anything previously available, specifically requesting something that smelled distinctly like a woman, not like a particular flower. Beau presented Chanel with several numbered sample formulas, and she famously selected the fifth one presented to her, giving the finished perfume its now iconic and enduringly simple name, Chanel No. 5. The formula relied heavily on synthetic aldehydes, a bold and unusual choice at the time that gave the perfume its distinctive sparkling, almost abstract quality unlike any traditional floral fragrance that had come before it. Chanel's packaging proved equally revolutionary, featuring a minimalist, almost clinical square glass bottle that dramatically broke from the ornate, decorative perfume bottles typically favored throughout the rest of the industry. Marilyn Monroe's famous remark that she wore nothing to bed except a few drops of Chanel No. 5 became one of history's most effective and enduring pieces of unintentional celebrity marketing for any fragrance product. Chanel No. 5 remains commercially successful more than a century after its original release, proving that genuinely innovative perfume, paired with masterful branding, can achieve it. level of lasting cultural impact rarely seen elsewhere. The perfume's success also established a new template for the entire industry, demonstrating that fragrance could be marketed as a symbol of personal identity and lifestyle, rather than simply a pleasant smell applied to the skin. Other fashion designers quickly followed Chanel's example, launching their own signature fragrances, and recognizing perfume as a genuinely profitable extension of their broader fashion brands, rather than a separate, unrelated product category. Celebrity endorsements, striking advertising campaigns, and carefully cultivated brand mystique became increasingly central to perfume marketing throughout the 20th century, often mattering as much to commercial success as the actual scent itself. By the mid-20th century, perfume had firmly transformed into a global, highly profitable industry built as much on image, storytelling, and aspiration as on the traditional craft of blending fragrant ingredients together. Today's perfume industry combines centuries of accumulated tradition with cutting-edge modern chemistry, analytical technology, and sophisticated global marketing strategies unimaginable to ancient perfumers. Modern fragrance laboratories use advanced instruments like gas chromatography to analyze scent molecules with remarkable precision, identifying and reproducing complex fragrances at a molecular level with genuine scientific accuracy. Perfumers today have access to thousands of both natural and synthetic ingredients, allowing for an almost unlimited range of creative combinations that earlier generations of craftsmen could never have realistically imagined possible. Major fragrance houses invest enormous resources into researching consumer preferences, testing formulas extensively across different markets and demographics before committing to full commercial production and release. Sustainability has become an increasingly important consideration within the modern industry, with growing pressure to source natural ingredients responsibly and reduce the environmental impact of large-scale flower cultivation worldwide. The global perfume industry today generates tens of billions of dollars annually, employing chemists, farmers, marketers, and skilled artisans across a genuinely worldwide supply chain spanning multiple continents and cultures. Despite all this technological advancement, the fundamental goal remains remarkably unchanged from ancient times: capturing pleasant scent and using it to express identity, status, memory, and emotion in deeply personal ways. Niche and independent perfume houses have grown significantly in recent years, offering consumers alternatives to mass-market fragrances and reviving interest in traditional, artisanal production. Methods reminiscent of Grasse's earlier craftsmanship. Digital technology has also reshaped how people discover and purchase fragrance, with online reviews, sample subscription services, and social media significantly influencing consumer choices in ways earlier generations never experienced. Researchers continue exploring the psychological and neurological effects of scent, studying how specific fragrances influence memory, mood, and even social perception, adding genuine scientific depth to what was once purely artistic intuition. As the industry moves forward, it remains firmly anchored in the same core human desire that drove ancient Egyptian priests and Mesopotamian chemists thousands of years ago: the simple, enduring pleasure of a pleasant scent. Today, that small glass bottle sitting quietly on your bathroom shelf carries an unbroken lineage stretching back thousands of years, connecting you directly to priests, chemists, kings, and revolutionary designers. When an Egyptian priestess spurned incense before a temple statue thousands of years ago, she could not have imagined that the same basic desire for pleasant scent would eventually drive a multi-billion-dollar global industry. Tapputi, distilling flowers in ancient Mesopotamia, could not have known her methods would echo forward through Islamic scholars, French kings, and modern chemists into techniques still recognizable in laboratories today. The perfumers of Grasse, carefully handpicking jasmine before dawn, helped build an industry that would eventually put fragrance within reach of nearly everyone, not just the wealthy and powerful few of earlier centuries. And cocoa, Chanel's bold decision to bottle something entirely new, rather than simply imitating a flower, permanently changed how the entire world understands what perfume can actually represent and express. Every time someone applies fragrance today, whether an expensive designer bottle or a simple drugstore spray. They are participating in a tradition connecting them to temple priests, royal courts, and pioneering chemists across thousands of years of human history. This has been the history of perfume, the scent that ruled empires, from sacred Egyptian temples to the Palace of Versailles, from Mesopotamian distillation to a single revolutionary bottle that changed fashion forever. Think about that the next time you reach for a bottle of perfume or cologne. That small gesture carries the memory of ancient priests, brilliant chemists, powerful kings, and daring designers, all compressed into a single fleeting moment of fragrance. What began as a sacred offering to distant gods eventually became one of humanity's most enduring, most personal, and most universally shared forms of self-expression, connecting every single one of us to a story stretching back thousands of years. From the temples of ancient Egypt to the laboratories of modern Paris, the desire to smell pleasant, to feel refined, to carry a small piece of beauty with us wherever we go, has remained one of the most constant threads running through all of human civilization. And somewhere, right now, a perfumer is lending a new fragrance, unknowingly continuing a tradition that began thousands of years ago with a priestess pouring oil into a stone vase, believing her offering might somehow reach the heavens above.